Marcus Chen had been staring out the observation deck's massive viewport for over an hour, watching the swirling nebula of Kepler 442 paint the darkness in shades of purple and gold. The research station orbiting the system's fourth planet hummed with its usual background noise, but his mind was elsewhere, wrestling with the quantum equations that had been haunting him for weeks. The breakthrough he sought felt tantalizingly close. His work on dimensional phase variance could revolutionize faster than light travel, making humanity's expansion into the galaxy not just possible, but practical. The current jump drives required massive energy expenditures and could only manage short hops between nearby systems. Marcus believed he could change that. Deep thoughts? The voice was melodic, with an accent he couldn't place. Marcus turned, startled from his contemplation. Standing behind him was the most striking woman he'd ever seen, though calling her simply a woman felt inadequate. She stood nearly 7 feet tall, her skin a luminous pale blue that seemed to shimmer with internal light. Her hair, if it could be called hair, appeared to be made of living silver that moved with its own gentle current. Her eyes were larger than human normal, a deep violet that held flecks of starlight. She wore form-fitting clothing that looked more grown than manufactured, a deep purple that complemented her skin tone. Her proportions were elegant, elongated, but unmistakably feminine. When she moved, it was with a fluid grace that made Marcus think of dancers or predators. "I was lost in thought when you," Marcus began, then found himself studying her openly. There was something mesmerizing about her alien beauty, so different from human aesthetics, yet somehow perfect. The alien woman tilted her head, her lips curving into an amused smile that revealed teeth like polished pearls. "You admire my form?" she asked, her tone playful but with an undercurrent of genuine curiosity. Marcus felt heat rise in his cheeks. He'd been staring, and she'd caught him. "I apologize. I didn't mean to be rude. It's just, you're the first Zephyrian I've met in person." "No apology needed," she said, moving closer with that impossible grace. "I am Lyra Lay, of the House of Distant Stars. And you are Marcus Chen, the human physicist who thinks he can revolutionize space travel. You know who I am? Your reputation precedes you. The human who refuses to accept limitations." She gestured toward the viewport. "I have been observing your species for some time. You fascinate us." "Us? The Zephyrian Collective. We have watched humanity's rapid expansion with great interest. In mere centuries, you have gone from a single world to dozens of colonies. Most species take millennia to achieve such spread." Marcus found himself studying her again, trying to understand the technology that made her clothing seem alive, the way her hair moved in patterns that defied physics. "What brings you to this research station?" "You do." Lirelay moved to stand beside him at the viewport, close enough that he caught a scent like ozone and starlight. "The collective has been monitoring your dimensional phase variance research. We have concerns." "Concerns?" "Your species has a tendency toward rapid advancement followed by explosive outcomes. You developed nuclear weapons within decades of splitting the atom. You created artificial intelligence that nearly destroyed your homeworld before you learned to control it. Now you seek to tear holes in space-time itself." Marcus bristled. "We're not reckless. Every experiment is carefully controlled, monitored by the best minds in human space." Lirelay's laugh was like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Careful? Your people tried to build a wormhole generator in the Sol system. When it failed, the energy discharge sterilized 3 moons. You called it a minor setback. That was 40 years ago. We've learned since then. Have you?" She turned to face him fully, those violet eyes seeming to look straight through him. "Tell me, Marcus Chen, what do you see when you look at that nebula?" Marcus followed her gaze to the cosmic display outside. "I see stellar formation, hydrogen clouds condensing under gravity, nuclear fusion igniting new stars, the birth of solar systems that might one day harbor life. And what else? I see opportunity, resources, knowledge. The nebula contains rare elements that could advance our technology. Its gravitational anomalies could help us test new propulsion theories. Lirelei nodded slowly. That is exactly what concerns us. Where we see beauty and natural wonder to be preserved, you see potential to be exploited. Where we see cosmic processes that should be observed and respected, you see experiments waiting to happen. That's not fair. Humans appreciate beauty too. We have artists, musicians, poets. We preserve natural wonders on hundreds of worlds. Yes. But always in service to your expansion. You preserve what serves your purposes. She paused, studying his face. But you are different from the others I have observed. How so? Most humans I have encountered think in terms of immediate gain. They see a problem and attack it directly, with force and determination. You think in patterns, in connections. Your dimensional phase variance theory doesn't seek to overpower the barriers to faster-than-light travel. It seeks to understand them, to work with them. Marcus felt a strange warmth at her observation. You've read my research? I have done more than read it. I have lived it. Lirelei raised her hand, and the air around her fingers began to shimmer. Watch. The space above her palm folded in on itself, creating a pocket of distorted reality no larger than a marble. Through it, Marcus could see another part of the station, the hydroponics bay 3 levels down. As he watched, she reached through the fold and plucked a flower from one of the gardens. The fold collapsed as she drew her hand back. Impossible, Marcus breathed. Localized space-time manipulation on that scale would require massive energy expenditure according to human physics, yes, but you are thinking in terms of force again. What if space-time could be convinced to fold, rather than forced to bend? Marcus stared at the flower in her hand, his mind racing. You're suggesting that consciousness itself could be a factor in dimensional manipulation? Your species has an unusual relationship with reality. Most beings exist within the universe. Humans seem to exist in constant tension with it, always pushing against the boundaries of what is possible. It makes you dangerous, but also remarkable. The collective sent you to stop my research? Lirelei was quiet for a long moment, her gaze returning to the nebula. The collective sent me to evaluate the threat your species represents. Your dimensional phase variance research could give humanity the ability to cross the galaxy in days rather than months. Such power in the hands of a species that views the universe as a resource to be harvested. And, what's your evaluation? She turned back to him, and for the first time, her expression seemed uncertain. I find myself conflicted. Your species should terrify me. By all logical analysis, humanity represents a clear threat to cosmic stability. Yet standing here with you, watching you contemplate the beauty of stellar formation, even as you calculate how to exploit it, I see something unexpected, which is potential for growth, for wisdom. She moved closer, and Marcus caught that otherworldly scent again. Most species develop either power or wisdom, but rarely both. Humans seem to pursue power relentlessly, but always in service of understanding. You don't conquer because you hate, you explore because you love. Marcus felt his heart rate increase as she stepped into his personal space. The logical part of his mind cataloged the obvious physical differences between their species, but a deeper part of him responded to something universal in her presence. What happens now? He asked. Now, I must decide whether to recommend that the collective shares its knowledge with humanity or ensures that your dimensional research fails. Her violet eyes searched his face. Help me understand, Marcus Chen. What drives you? What do you hope to achieve with this breakthrough? I want to give humanity the stars, he said without hesitation. Not just the nearby ones, but all of them. I want us to be able to explore every corner of the galaxy, to meet every species that calls it home, to learn everything there is to know about the universe. And if that knowledge proves dangerous? If what you discover could unmake reality itself? Marcus was quiet for a moment, genuinely considering the question. Then we'd have to be wise enough to use it responsibly, or wise enough not to use it at all. Lirelei smiled, and it transformed her alien features into something breathtakingly beautiful. That, Marcus Chen, is the first time I have heard a human acknowledge the possibility of restraint. We're not as reckless as you think. Yes, we make mistakes. Yes, we sometimes act before we think. But we learn, we adapt, we grow. Do you? She touched his arm, and he felt a strange tingling sensation. Your species has been at war with itself for its entire recorded history. Even now, there are human factions that would use dimensional manipulation technology as a weapon. And there are human factions working to prevent that. We're not a monolith. We're individuals making choices every day about what kind of species we want to become. Lirelei studied him intently. The collective believes that humanity's aggressive expansion and rapid technological development makes you inherently unstable. That given enough power, you will inevitably use it destructively. What do you believe? I believe. She paused, seeming to search for the right words. That you are the first species I have encountered that contains both the potential for great creation and great destruction. Most species lean heavily toward one or the other. You exist in the balance point. Is that good or bad? It is unprecedented. She moved away from him, her silver hair catching the nebula's light. I have been studying your species for 2 standard cycles now. I have observed your wars and your art, your cruelty and your compassion, your isolation and your desperate need for connection. You are walking contradictions. Marcus found himself following her movement, drawn by something beyond physical attraction. What's your real name? Lirelei of the House of Distant Stars sounds like a title. It is a title. In your language, my name would translate roughly to She Who Questions the Pattern. My function within the collective is to analyze and understand species that don't fit our predictive models. And humans don't fit? Humans break every model we have. You should have destroyed yourselves centuries ago with nuclear weapons. When you didn't, you should have stagnated in colonial expansion. When you didn't, you should have fragmented into competing empires. Instead, you formed the Terran Alliance and continued expanding while somehow maintaining your diversity of thought and culture. Maybe we're just stubborn. Lirelei laughed again, that musical sound that seemed to harmonize with the station's ambient noise. Stubborn. Yes. That is one way to describe a species that refuses to acknowledge impossibility. Marcus moved closer to her. If your people have been watching us so closely, why reveal yourself now? Why here? Because your dimensional research represents a threshold moment. If successful, it will elevate humanity from a regional species to a galactic power almost overnight. The collective must decide whether to ally with you, contain you, or... She didn't finish the sentence. Or destroy us? The collective has eliminated species before, when they posed sufficient threat to cosmic stability. Marcus felt a chill. How many? 12 confirmed. Perhaps others that we do not speak of. Her expression became grave. It is not done lightly. Each elimination required unanimous consensus and irrefutable proof of inevitable destructive intent. And where does humanity stand in your analysis? Unknown. Which is why I am here. To understand what drives individuals like you. To see if your species can mature into its power. They stood in comfortable silence for several minutes, watching the nebula's slow dance. Marcus found himself acutely aware of her presence, the way she moved with perfect balance, the subtle luminescence of her skin, the alien beauty that somehow felt familiar. Can I ask you something personal? He said finally. Define personal for an interaction between species. Do you find humans attractive? Not just intellectually interesting, but... He struggled to find the right words. Lirelei turned to face him fully, her violet eyes studying his face with renewed intensity. You are asking if there can be physical attraction between our species? Yes. She was quiet for a long moment, her silver hair shifting in patterns that seemed to reflect her thoughts. The collective has strict protocols about emotional attachment to study subjects. It compromises objectivity. That's not really an answer. No, she said softly. It is not. She stepped closer. close enough that he could feel the subtle warmth radiating from her luminous skin. Your species is visually pleasing to us. Your proportions, though smaller than ours, follow mathematical principles that we find aesthetically appealing. Your emotional expressiveness is captivating. Captivating how? Zephyrians experience emotion differently than humans. We feel deeply, but express subtly. Watching human emotional displays is like watching a symphony made visible. Your joy, your anger, your passion. It radiates from you in ways that are almost overwhelming to our senses. Marcus realized she was standing close enough to touch. Is that why you're really here? Not just to study our technology, but to understand us as beings? Perhaps. Her voice was barely above a whisper. The collective chose me for this assignment because I have shown unusual interest in species that express emotion physically. They believed it would help me understand humanity better. Has it? It has taught me that understanding and experiencing are not the same thing. She reached out and touched his face with fingertips that felt surprisingly warm and surprisingly familiar. Your skin is rough compared to ours, but the warmth is pleasant. Your features are crude by our standards, but they convey meaning in ways our perfect symmetry cannot. Marcus felt his breath catch. The touch of her fingers sent unexpected sensations through his nervous system. Lirale, I am violating protocols by allowing this interaction to become personal, she said. But she didn't remove her hand. I should report to my ship and recommend containment procedures for your research. But you're not going to. I am beginning to understand why the collective finds your species so unpredictable, she said with a soft smile. You make us question certainties we have held for millennia. The moment stretched between them, filled with possibility and uncertainty. Marcus realized he was standing at a crossroads that extended far beyond his personal feelings. His response to this alien woman might determine not just his own fate, but the fate of his entire species. What do you need from me? He asked. To prove that humanity deserves a chance? Lirale's violet eyes seemed to glow brighter. Show me your work. Not just the equations and theories, but the vision behind them. Help me understand what you see when you imagine humanity among the stars. And if I can't convince you, then I will recommend that your research be contained by any means necessary. Her touch moved from his cheek to his chin, tilting his face up slightly. But I find myself hoping that you will surprise me, Marcus Chen. Your species has a talent for achieving the impossible. As she spoke, alarms began sounding throughout the station. Emergency lights bathed the observation deck in red, and automated voices announced, all personnel to stations. Unknown vessels approaching. This is not a drill. Lirale's hand dropped from his face, and her expression shifted to something harder, more alien. It appears our conversation will have to continue later. The collective has arrived. Marcus rushed to the nearest console, while Lirale remained eerily still, her luminous skin now pulsing with a rhythm that matched the alarm signals. Through the viewport, he could see sleek, crystalline ships materializing from what appeared to be folded space, their surfaces reflecting the nebula's colors like living jewels. 3 vessels. Triangular configuration, Marcus called out, reading the sensor data. They're not showing up on our long-range scanners. Some kind of stealth technology? They exist partially outside normal space-time, Lirale said, her voice taking on a formal quality that hadn't been there moments before. Standard detection methods cannot track dimensional phase-shifted objects. Marcus turned from the console. The same technology I've been theorizing about. You've already mastered it. The collective has possessed dimensional manipulation capabilities for over 10,000 of your years. We use it responsibly. Khan, responsibly according to whom? Before Lirale could answer, the station's communication system crackled to life. The voice that emerged was similar to hers but colder, more distant. Zephyrian Evaluation Agent Designation, Lirale. You will present yourself for immediate extraction. Your mission parameters have changed. Lirale closed her violet eyes and spoke in a language that sounded like musical mathematics. The response came swiftly, sharp with disapproval. They're speaking too fast for me to translate, Marcus said. They are ordering my return. The collective has decided that humanity poses an imminent threat. My evaluation period has been terminated. Based on what evidence? 3 hours ago, your Terran Alliance began moving military vessels toward this system. 17 ships, including 2 that our sensors indicate, carry experimental weapons. The collective interprets this as preparation for aggressive action. Marcus felt ice form in his stomach. We have a research protection protocol. Whenever civilian scientists are working near contested space, military escort is standard procedure. It's not aggressive, it's defensive. Explain this to beings who have watched your species turn every technological advancement into a weapon within decades of discovery. The communication system activated again. Human designation, Marcus Chen. You are to prepare for immediate evacuation. This station will be disabled to prevent continuation of dimensional research. Compliance will ensure no harm comes to station personnel. Marcus moved to the communication panel. This is Dr. Marcus Chen. I'm willing to discuss our research with your representatives. Perhaps we can find common ground. Static filled the channel before a different voice responded. This one carrying unmistakable authority. Human, your species has demonstrated repeatedly that negotiation is merely a delay tactic while you develop superior weapons. We will not repeat the errors of species who trusted your peaceful intentions. Sir, with respect, you're making assumptions based on incomplete data. Yes, humans have a history of conflict, but we also have a history of learning from our mistakes. Your military vessels approaching this system suggest otherwise. Marcus looked at Lirelei, who was watching him with an expression he couldn't read. Can you give me 12 hours? Let me show your people my research. Explain what we're actually trying to achieve. If you're not convinced, I'll shut down the project myself. Silence stretched across the communication channel. Finally, the authoritative voice returned. Agent Lirelei. Your assessment of this individual's sincerity? Lirelei stared at Marcus for several seconds, her silver hair shifting in complex patterns. The human shows indicators of genuine conviction. His emotional responses appear authentic. However, individual sincerity does not guarantee species-wide behavior. Nevertheless, your recommendation? I recommend limited engagement. 12 hours may provide valuable insight into human decision-making processes under pressure. Very well. 12 hours. Agent Lirelei will monitor the human. Any attempt at deception or delay will result in immediate termination of this station and all personnel. All. The channel closed, leaving Marcus and Lirelei alone with the red emergency lighting and the ominous presence of the collective ships outside. Thank you, Marcus said. Do not thank me yet. I have possibly delayed your destruction by mere hours. Unless you can demonstrate something unprecedented, the outcome remains unchanged. Marcus moved to another console and began pulling up his research files. Then, let's get started. But first, I need to know what would actually convince your collective that humanity deserves a chance. Then, evidence that your species can possess power without abusing it. Evidence that you can encounter the unknown without seeking to dominate it. Evidence that you can make choices based on wisdom, rather than fear or greed. That's a pretty high standard. It is the only standard that matters when discussing the survival of billions of beings. Lirelei moved closer to the console. Show me your work. Lirelei. Marcus activated his holographic display system, filling the space between them with swirling equations and three-dimensional models of space-time geometry. This is dimensional phase variance theory. Traditional, faster-than-light travel tries to punch holes through space-time using massive energy expenditures. But what if instead of forcing our way through, we could slip between the dimensional barriers? Explain your methodology. Space-time isn't actually continuous at the quantum level. There are gaps, fluctuations, places where the fabric of reality is thinner. My theory suggests that with precise frequency modulation, we could shift a vessel slightly out of phase with normal space-time, allowing it to essentially slide through these gaps. Lirelei studied the holographic models, her violet eyes tracking the mathematical relationships. Your calculations assume that consciousness itself affects quantum probability. This is considered impossible by most species. Most species might be wrong. Human consciousness seems to have unusual properties. Our quantum physicists have documented observer effects that go beyond anything predicted by standard theory. What if consciousness isn't just observing reality but actually participating in creating it? You are suggesting that human mental activity could facilitate dimensional phase shifting? I'm suggesting that human pilots might be uniquely qualified for this type of travel because our minds exist in constant creative tension with reality. We don't just accept what is, we imagine what could be. Lireley was quiet for several minutes, manipulating the holographic display to examine his equations from different angles. This approach would indeed avoid the massive energy requirements of traditional FTL drives. The power needed would be minimal if the consciousness effect is real. And it would be inherently safe. Unlike wormhole technology that could potentially tear holes in space-time, phase shifting would work with the natural quantum fluctuations. Show me your experimental data. Marcus pulled up a series of test results. We've achieved phase shifts with individual particles. 12-second displacements across distances of up to 3 meters. The particles return to normal spacetime with no detectable damage or alteration. 12 seconds is significant. Most phase manipulation experiments last nanoseconds at most. Human test subjects seem to extend the effect through focused concentration. It's like meditation, but directed at the particle's quantum state. Lireley stared at him. You are using human mental focus to stabilize quantum phase variance? That's the theory we're testing. Marcus, do you understand what this means? If human consciousness can affect quantum states over extended periods, your species possesses a capability that no other known life form has demonstrated. Is that good or bad for our survival prospects? Unknown. On one hand, it represents a completely unprecedented form of mental-physical interaction. On the other hand, it suggests that humans could potentially manipulate reality itself at the quantum level. Marcus felt a chill. You think we could be dangerous in ways we don't even understand yet? I think your species continues to surprise us in ways both remarkable and terrifying. The communication system activated again. Status report. Agent Lireley. The human's research demonstrates unexpected quantum consciousness interaction. Preliminary analysis suggests this technology could be significantly safer than conventional FTL drives. Elaborate on the consciousness interaction. Lireley looked at Marcus, and he nodded permission for her to continue. Human mental activity appears to stabilize quantum phase variance effects. Test results show 12-second particle displacements with no energy spikes or space-time distortions. This data has been verified. I am observing the experimental logs now. The results appear authentic. Agent Lireley, conduct an immediate practical demonstration. If the human technology functions as described, we require direct observation. Marcus moved to his experimental chamber, a small room adjacent to the observation deck. The test equipment is designed for particle-level experiments. We haven't attempted anything larger yet. What would be required for a larger test? A volunteer willing to focus their consciousness on maintaining quantum coherence while we attempt to phase shift a larger object. Maybe something the size of a basketball. Lireley followed him into the chamber, studying the array of quantum field generators and monitoring equipment. What are the risks to the volunteer? 2. Unknown, theoretically, none. The volunteer wouldn't be phase shifted themselves, just maintaining mental focus on the target object. But we're in uncharted territory here. I volunteer. Marcus stopped adjusting the equipment. You? But you're not human. The consciousness effect might not work with Zephyrian mental patterns. That would itself be valuable data. If the effect is uniquely human, it supports your theory about your species' unusual relationship with reality. Marcus hesitated. If something goes wrong, at least the collective will have observed the attempt. It may influence their final decision regarding humanity. Marcus activated the equipment and placed a spherical test object in the phase chamber. I need you to focus on the object's quantum state. Imagine it existing slightly outside normal space-time, not forcing it, but encouraging it to slip between dimensional barriers. Lirelei positioned herself in front of the chamber, her violet eyes fixed on the test sphere. Beginning focus now. Marcus initiated the phase variance field and watched his instruments carefully. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then the sphere began to shimmer, its edges becoming indistinct. Phase coherence building, he reported. Quantum displacement beginning. The sphere vanished completely for 8 seconds, then reappeared exactly where it had been. Successful phase shift, Marcus called out. 8-second displacement. With full return to normal space-time. Lirelei stepped back from the chamber, her silver hair shifting in excited patterns. I felt it. The object's quantum signature responding to conscious intention. But the sensation was different from what I expected. Different how? Human consciousness apparently creates a resonance field that stabilizes quantum variance. Zephyrian consciousness interacts with quantum states through harmonic matching. Both work, but through completely different mechanisms. The communication system crackled. Agent Lirelei, explain what you just experienced. Sir, I successfully facilitated an 8-second phase shift using Zephyrian mental techniques adapted to human experimental parameters. The human's quantum consciousness theory appears valid for multiple species. Are you saying this technology could be safely used by any sufficiently advanced species? Potentially, yes. Each species would need to develop techniques suited to their particular consciousness quantum interaction patterns. End quote. Marcus leaned toward the communicator. That's the point of the research. We're not trying to develop uniquely human technology. We're trying to understand fundamental consciousness reality interactions that could benefit everyone. A new voice came through the channel, younger and more curious than the previous speaker. Human. Your experimental results suggest that consciousness directly affects quantum probability fields. This contradicts established physics. Maybe established physics is incomplete. Maybe consciousness isn't just an emergent property of complex matter arrangements. Maybe it's a fundamental force like gravity or electromagnetism. You are suggesting consciousness as a basic component of reality? I'm suggesting that humans might be uniquely qualified to test that hypothesis because our consciousness seems to exist in active dialogue with reality rather than passive observation of it. Lirelei moved closer to him. Marcus, do you realize what you have just proposed? If consciousness is indeed a fundamental force, then intelligent species are not just products of the universe, but active participants in its structure, which would mean that destroying any intelligent species would be like destroying part of the universe's ability to understand itself. Silence filled the communication channel for several minutes. When the authoritative voice returned, it carried a different tone. Agent Lirelei, your personal assessment of this human's motivations? Sir, Dr. Chen appears genuinely driven by curiosity rather than conquest. His research methodology prioritizes understanding over application. His theoretical framework could potentially benefit all consciousness-bearing species. And your assessment of the broader threat posed by humanity? Lirelei looked at Marcus, her violet eyes reflecting complex emotions. Sir, I believe we may have misunderstood the nature of the human species. They are not seeking to dominate reality through force. They are seeking to participate in reality through understanding. This represents a fundamentally different approach than we have previously encountered. You recommend policy revision regarding humanity? I recommend immediate collaborative engagement. If Dr. Chen's theories are correct, humanity may possess insights into consciousness-reality interaction that could advance the understanding of all species in the collective. The channel went silent again. Marcus could see the crystalline ships outside the viewport adjusting their positions, though he couldn't tell if they were preparing for attack or withdrawal. Marcus, Lirelei said softly, what you have shown me changes everything. If consciousness is indeed a fundamental force, then the collective's policy of eliminating threatening species may have been destroying irreplaceable perspectives on reality itself. What happens now? Now, we wait for the collective to decide whether humanity represents a threat to be eliminated or a potential partner in understanding the deepest mysteries of existence. Marcus realized that the next few hours would determine not just his fate and the fate of humanity, but possibly the future relationship between consciousness and cosmos itself. The waiting stretched into hours. Marcus had retreated to his laboratory while Lorelei stood motionless in the observation deck, her silver hair flowing in patterns that suggested deep communication with her distant superiors. The collective ships maintained their threatening positions, neither advancing nor withdrawing. Marcus buried himself in refining his equations, partly to stay productive, and partly to avoid thinking about the sword hanging over, not just his head, but over all of humanity. The consciousness-reality interaction data from their successful experiment kept yielding new insights. If his theories were correct, every intelligent species in the galaxy was essentially a unique lens through which the universe could understand itself. Dr. Chen. The voice belonged to Captain Sarah Morrison, the station commander. She had entered his lab without him noticing, her expression grim. "We've received word from Terran Command. The escort fleet has been ordered to maintain distance and defensive posture only. They won't interfere with whatever decision the collective makes." "Understood, Captain." "Marcus, I need you to know that everyone on this station volunteered to stay. When the evacuation order came through, nobody took it. They all want to see how this turns out." Marcus looked up from his equations. "They're risking their lives for a physics experiment. They're risking their lives for the future of human space exploration. And maybe for something bigger than that." Captain Morrison moved closer to his displays. "The collective isn't just deciding our fate, are they? No. They're deciding whether consciousness itself has rights in the universe. Whether destroying an intelligent species is murder of the highest order. And if they decide against us?" Marcus set down his stylus. "Then at least we'll have proven that humans were worth the chance." Captain Morrison nodded and left him to his work. Marcus returned to his calculations, but his mind kept drifting to Lorelei. In the few hours they had spent together, she had become more than just an alien contact. She represented the possibility that understanding could bridge even the vast differences between species. The communication system activated with a sharp tone. "All personnel to designated emergency stations. Collective decision conference beginning." Marcus made his way back to the observation deck, where Lorelei waited with an expression more serious than any he had seen from her. The crystalline ships had moved into a perfect triangle formation, and their surfaces were now glowing with internal light. "The Consensus Council has convened," Lorelei said without preamble. 12 of the most senior minds in the collective are examining all available data about humanity. Your work, your history, your potential future paths. How does this work? They will consider 3 options: integration, containment, or elimination. Integration would make humanity a junior member of the collective. Containment would restrict human expansion to your current territories. Elimination would prevent your species from advancing beyond this point. And your recommendation carries weight in this decision? Some. But my personal involvement with you has been noted. The Council will factor in potential bias in my assessment. Marcus moved closer to her. Personal involvement? Lorelei turned from the viewport, her violet eyes meeting his directly. "Marcus, what has developed between us violates every protocol for interaction with evaluation subjects. By the standards of my people, I have compromised my mission through emotional attachment. And by human standards, you've become someone I care about deeply in an impossibly short time, which should not be possible between beings so different. Maybe that's exactly why it is possible. Humans have always been attracted to the unknown, the challenging, the impossible." Lorelei smiled, that expression that transformed her alien features into something breathtaking. "And Zephyrians have always been drawn to beings who defy our understanding of reality." The communication system crackled with the formal tones of the collective. Final phase of evaluation commencing. Agent Lorelei. Present the human subject for direct consciousness interface. Lorelei's expression became instantly serious. "They want to examine your mind directly. To experience human consciousness from the inside. Is that safe? Unknown. It has never been attempted with a human. But it may be the only way to convince them that your species deserves to survive." Marcus felt his heart rate increase. "What do I need to do?" "Allow me to establish a temporary neural link. I will serve as a buffer between your consciousness and the Council's collective mind. You must think clearly about what drives you, what humanity represents, what you hope to achieve. And if something goes wrong, then I will share whatever fate befalls you. Lirelei placed her hands on either side of his face. Marcus, once this connection is made, the Council will experience human consciousness directly. Everything you are, everything you hope for, will be laid bare before beings who have never encountered minds like yours. Will you be able to see it too? Yes, I will know you as completely as any being can know another. Marcus covered her hands with his own. Then you'll understand why I believe in humanity's potential. Lirelei began to glow with soft, pearl-colored light. Marcus felt a tingling sensation where her skin touched his. Then a strange expansion of awareness. Suddenly, he could sense other minds touching his own. Vast intelligences that felt ancient and patient and utterly alien. The contact was overwhelming at first, like trying to hear a whisper in a thunderstorm. Then Lirelei's presence steadied him, her consciousness serving as a translation matrix between his chaotic human thoughts and the ordered minds of the Council. He felt their surprise immediately. Human consciousness, they discovered, was nothing like they had expected. Where they experienced thought as flowing streams of logic, humans thought in explosions of connection, leaping between ideas through intuition and emotion, and pure creative force. Marcus focused on his earliest memory of looking up at the stars, the sense of wonder and possibility that had driven every choice in his life. He shared his vision of humans exploring the galaxy, not as conquerors but as students, learning from every species they encountered, contributing their unique perspective to the collective understanding of existence. The Council minds recoiled slightly from the intensity of his emotions, then pressed closer, fascinated by the way human consciousness seemed to burn with passionate curiosity. Through Lirelei's translation, he felt their growing amazement at how humans could hold contradictory ideas simultaneously, how they could embrace uncertainty and ambiguity as tools for discovery, rather than obstacles to overcome. One of the Council minds focused specifically on his relationship with Lirelei, examining how he could feel genuine affection for a being so different from himself. Marcus shared his perception of her alien beauty. The way her differences made her more fascinating rather than frightening. The human tendency to find connection across any barrier. Another mind examined his scientific work, following the creative leaps that had led to his dimensional phase theory. They discovered that human innovation came not from logical progression but from intuitive jumps across logical gaps. From the willingness to pursue ideas that seemed impossible. The longest examination focused on his moral reasoning, testing his responses to ethical dilemmas involving power and responsibility. Marcus felt them probe his conviction that knowledge itself was worth pursuing even at personal cost. His belief that understanding was always preferable to ignorance, even when understanding revealed uncomfortable truths. Through it all, Lirelei maintained the connection, her consciousness intertwining with his to provide stability and translation. Marcus began to sense her own thoughts more clearly, her growing amazement at the complexity and passion of human mental activity. Her genuine affection for him that had developed despite every logical reason to maintain professional distance. Finally, the Council minds withdrew, leaving Marcus and Lirelei alone in their shared consciousness space for a moment that felt like eternity. In that moment, he experienced her perception of him fully. Alien and familiar. Chaotic and purposeful. Dangerous and beautiful. Then the connection broke, leaving him gasping on the observation deck, while Lirelei steadied him with hands that trembled slightly. "What did they decide?" he asked when he could speak again. "They are conferring. Your consciousness was unlike anything in their experience. They need time to process what they learned." What did they learn? That human minds exist in a state of creative chaos that should be impossible but somehow generates unprecedented innovation. That your species possesses an intuitive understanding of consciousness-reality interaction that took us millennia to develop through methodical study. That you are capable of genuine affection for beings completely unlike yourselves. Is that enough? I do not know. But Marcus, whatever they decide, I want you to know that sharing consciousness with you was. She paused, searching for words, the most beautiful and terrifying experience of my existence. The communication system activated with ceremonial tones. The Consensus Council has reached a decision regarding the human species and the individual designated Marcus Chen. Marcus felt Liralei's hand slip into his, her fingers intertwining with his, in a gesture that needed no translation between species. The Council finds that humanity represents an unprecedented form of conscious evolution. Your species' chaotic creativity, emotional intensity, and intuitive understanding of consciousness-reality interaction constitute capabilities that could benefit all members of the collective. Marcus felt relief flood through him, but the voice continued. However, these same capabilities represent potential dangers that cannot be ignored. Human consciousness operates outside established parameters for stable civilizations. Marcus's relief curdled into dread. Therefore, the Council proposes a trial integration period. Humanity will be granted junior membership in the collective for a period of 1,000 standard cycles. During this time, human expansion will be monitored and guided by collective advisors. Dr. Marcus Chen's dimensional phase research will be conducted as a joint project with full collective scientific support. Marcus stared at Liralei. 1,000 years of probation? Better than elimination, she said softly. And better than containment. They are giving humanity a chance to prove itself. Agent Liralei. The Council voice continued. You have shown exceptional insight in your evaluation of humanity. You are hereby assigned as permanent liaison between the collective and human civilization. Dr. Chen, you will work directly with Agent Liralei to develop consciousness-integrated space travel technologies. Liralei's grip on his hand tightened. They are assigning me to stay with your species. To stay with you. Is that what you want? Marcus, after sharing consciousness with you, returning to purely Zephyrian thought patterns would feel like losing half of myself. The Council voice spoke one final time. Integration ceremonies will commence in 72 hours. Welcome to the collective, humanity. Try not to disappoint us. The crystalline ships began to withdraw, their surfaces dimming as they prepared to phase back into dimensional space. Marcus and Liralei stood together watching them go, their hands still clasped. Two beings from impossible different worlds, who had somehow found connection across the vast gulf between species. What happens now? Marcus asked. Now we build the future together, Liralei said, her silver hair shifting into patterns of contentment and anticipation. Humans and Zephyrians. Chaos and order. Creativity and wisdom. Perhaps together, we can unlock secrets of consciousness that neither species could discover alone. Marcus smiled, looking out at the nebula that had witnessed the beginning of a new chapter in galactic history. You know what I realized during the mind link? What? You're right that humans don't fit your predictive models. But maybe that's not a flaw in humanity. Maybe that's the whole point. Maybe the universe needs beings who refuse to accept limitations, who insist on pushing boundaries, who find beauty and possibility in the unknown. Liralei turned to face him fully, her violet eyes bright with possibilities. Perhaps the universe has been waiting for a species brave enough to question reality itself. And perhaps it has been waiting for another species wise enough to guide them. Partners? In every sense of the word. Marcus leaned closer to her, marveling at how natural this felt despite the impossibility of it all. You know, I was lost in thought when you first spoke to me. I never imagined that getting lost could lead to finding something so important. Liralei's laugh was like music in the cosmos. Your species has a gift for turning accidents into destiny. Perhaps that is your greatest strength. As they stood together watching the birth of new stars in the distant nebula, Marcus knew that humanity's greatest adventure was just beginning. They had earned their place among the stars not through conquest or dominance, but through the uniquely human gift of finding connection in the void, meaning in chaos, and love in the space between impossibilities.